under pressure, creative people perform well. And I'd like
That's
to
the
know
law. Is it like Parkinson's law or Pareto's law? Yeah, Parkinson's
something like
law.
that.
Did you hear about that concept? So it's basically just saying that, as you just said, that under pressure you're most likely to work more than
Except
if you
she
had
was
no
putting
deadline.
me under pressure.
So your
Yeah,
quality
she
of
was
work
very
will be better,
patient.
Hasna.
No, I was stressed out.
So on a psychology note, Hasna, can you help us on this,
Yeah, Dr. Hasnaa.
Dr. Hasna?
Oh no, please don't call me that.
So hello Iman, hello Hasna. Welcome to Canvas Stories, and we are here to talk about Words for the Ocean anthology project. And welcome to this podcast interview. And
Thank you so much.
our team XTM Plus really appreciate your presence today. So why don't you guys present yourself? We'll go with Iman first.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having us. I feel like nowadays people rely on you guys for artists to have a voice pretty much. So, all right, introduction. Where do we start? Well, I'm Iman Kadir, however you want to spell it. I'm 16 years old. I'm currently doing a BA in Islamic Sciences at Medina Institute in South Africa. And I write, as simple as it could get.
Cool. So Hasna, how are you today?
Hi, I'm good, thank you. So I'm Hasna, obviously, and I'm 20 years old. I'm studying psychology at Middlesex University, Mauritius. I'm currently in my second year. And yeah, apart from psychology, my my other passion is writing, and I share both passions in my heart.
Great. So you guys are really young. So I see you're in the first year of uni and you're just 16 years old. That's
You didn't know?
yeah, that's so uncommon in Mauritius. So tell us a bit about it. How you did do the traditional way of getting to uni.
All right. So, well, I was too cool for school, as I like to say. But thing is, I was always the backbencher during my first years of schooling. Always the kid that never does homework. Always the kid that is, just chilling around school. And then I was the average student, to be honest. And then at some point, well, people think that I'm super genius, or like I'm a genius or something like that, or I'm intelligent when I say that. But I was always the last to come out at the end of the school year in terms of results. The only time that I would come out third was for Arabic, but there was only 3 students in class. So, I was ambitious, and at the end of my form 5, I decided to skip Form 4, and I did Form 5 in 1 year instead of 1, and I did lower and upper in 1 year instead of 1 again. And that's how I sat for my HSC at 15, and then I got into university at 16. So there we go. That's how you get it. I just was ambitious enough to challenge myself.
So in a way, you already had in mind what of kind of journey you wanted at the end. So you really went for it.
I believe that it's both a mixture of me not knowing what on earth was I doing and just me being ambitious enough to want to make a change. And God willing, as we say, my goal is to eventually, encourage education in a better way, promote reforms for education. Experience as a student myself, experiencing the educational system in a not so positive light, if you want. So tomorrow, if I want to make a change, I have the proof on myself to begin with. So yeah, that's about it.
Yeah,
But
thank you.
Hasna has an interesting schooling story as well. How she decided to do psychology and all of that. I'm pretty sure that she'd want to talk about it.
Yeah, for sure,
Oh, it's
Hasna.
not interesting. It's just the normal thing where when I was in Funkat, I told everyone that I wanted to be a child psychologist, and by the end of Form 5, I was confused again, and I just listened to everyone who told me, si tu fais psychologie, tu pas pour un travail. So I was confused, and I just decided to not decide on anything until I finished high school. And then when I finished, as expected, I did not know what I wanted to do. So I spent probably 6 months or more just wondering, what am I going to do with my life? And then I got the opportunity to go to the US last year. Was it last year? Yes, it was last year, in April, for the Pan Africa Youth Leadership Program. It's a really interesting program where the US Embassy basically sends you to the US free of charge for 3 weeks, and with a bunch of other African students. And I got to visit a lot of places, go attend a lot of workshops. And one of those workshops was in, I forgot the name, I think it's Kids TLC in Kansas City, where there are kids who suffer from depression and other mental illnesses who stay there. Basically, a lot of suicidal kids who have to stay there under supervision because they are very suicidal. And I got to meet them. And as I hung out with them, I realized, okay, that's what I want to do. So then when I came back to Mauritius, I applied for psychology, and here I am.
That's really inspiring. And in your field of psychology, it's an opportunity for you as well to get a first-hand experience from that, right?
Psychology is very interesting because it applies in basically any field of life. Wherever you go, wherever you are, you can apply what you're learning because there are humans everywhere, and it's basically studying humans. So wherever I'm going, I'm just analyzing everyone.
You have a secret weapon, so you can use that anytime. So yes, coming up to 2020, as you all know, we have this COVID crisis, and locally we had this environmental disaster, marine disaster, MV Wakashio. And I see that on the 19th of August this year, you guys came up with a project called Words for the Ocean. Tell us a bit about it.
So we got the idea for the project on the 19th of August itself. Basically, I came to Iman with an idea. I always come to Iman for advice, and she comes to me for advice for anything really. We are very honest to each other, so we know that we can come to each other to have, the very honest, brutal advice that you need to hear. So I came to her and I told her that I wanted to do a project to bring Mauritian writers together. That was the initial idea. And Iman, being Iman, she's very ambitious, kind of crazy, and she just tells me, "Hey, let's make a book." And my immediate response is, "No, are you crazy? I just want to do a small thing, like something on Instagram, a contest or whatever." And she tells me, "No, but you have to think big, bro." And yeah, so she convinces me to make a book. I don't know how she did that, but she did. And I think on the day itself, we designed a poster to call Mauritian writers to send in their submissions. And the next day we posted it. And 1 week later, we already had more than 150 submissions.
So you guys made that call across all social media channels, right? So you already had you guys have Instagram, and I think that was helpful. So you're already posting content, and I think there's a community of Mauritians out there that who post their pieces, and that's a very good trend this year. I think last year was when it started, and yeah, that's really good. And for this 1 month, in terms of coordination, in terms of getting everyone on board, how was it? How did you plan this?
The thing is, with me and Hasna, I feel like we are very diversified, I should say. Like, we would get bored if we have 99 things to do. We would need 100, basically. Um, and I was full on in my assignment period on my side when this idea comes up, which is to say, again, that, you don't choose really the idea, nor did we plan that this was going to happen, but it did. And I'm a believer that if an idea comes to you, you should seize it, else it'll just fly away until it goes to someone else. And even though I feel like time is relative to how much you cater for it. So if you want to make 100 things in an hour, there is the possibility to do it. And Words for the Ocean is somehow a proof of that, despite our very busy schedules. And of course, me being in South Africa and Hasna being in Mauritius, it was quite tight, I should say, but we made things work. And as Hasna would say in some interviews, we have strong personalities, and I didn't know that I would be able to collaborate on someone when it came to writing, because I have, let's say, my own views about writing, and I believe to be an independent thinker. But out of all people, Hasna was the person I could collaborate with, and I knew I found out a lot about my collaborative skill during that process. But it was a very smooth process. Hasna was really comprehensible. I think we both had each other and understood each other in all of the aspects, be it on design, on compiling, on how to, host our authors, how to honor our authors, because obviously the goal behind it was, of course, one, to, as I like to phrase it better, to save our source of inspiration, which is the ocean, and for to promote writing. And that's one main point that I'd like to draw out. Like, our friendship made it much more easier. But in terms of process per se, I believe that we didn't expect everything to happen so fast, but it did. And we didn't plan it. We didn't, think too much about it. It happened. John Lennon says that life is what happens when you're busy planning. And I guess Words for the Ocean is just a testimony that, sometimes when it comes to art, you just got to go with the flow, as we all like to say. And here we are.
It was also dependent on the gravity of the event that occurred. So Mauritians really felt the patriotism factor, and I think they wanted to revolt. They wanted to express their grievances on this event. So, as you say, as a writer, I would like to know, how did you guys start up? How did you find that, yes, I want to write, I want to put things on paper, and what piece of writing inspired you, that moved you, basically? Like, for both of you guys, can address this experience?
For me, I don't think I have like one particular moment that I can think of where there was the déclic of yes, I want to write. Actually, very recently, I was going through some old stuff and I found old letters that I wrote to my parents when I was like 10 years old. And reading them now, it seems weird because for a 10-year-old, it didn't seem like something a 10-year-old would write. So even my parents, when they look back at it, they think, well, that's weird. For a normal 10-year-old to write a long letter expressing their feelings. So then I realized that it's something that has always been in me, to write, to have this urge to write. And when I look back on my life, I feel like any time where, your feelings just are too big to deal with, I feel like writing has always been my means of getting everything out. Not necessarily with, writing in my journal intime, but mostly, even if I don't write about what I'm feeling exactly, but just writing, the act of writing itself feels very special, and I feel like it has always been like that.
Iman, can you share your experience on this?
Um, Unlike conventional thought, I don't believe that anyone becomes a writer. I believe that those who have been chosen with the fate of being a writer is just a writer. There's no when, there's no how did you realize, there's no, that declic or whatever. One is born a writer, and I don't believe that anyone can become a writer. And I'm not saying this out of arrogance, I'm just saying this out of consideration for art, just as one is born an artist or a rugby player or whatever. For me, when I realized that writing is something that speaks to me, that speaks to my soul in a more poetic sense, was probably when I was like 12-ish, I think. Which, to think of it, it's not that long ago, but that's when I realized that I should be writing more, and that's where I started exploring the writing field. That's when I started reading more as well, and I grew up in a family where I was always exposed to books, and at some point I was like, okay, I'm just gonna try to add my touch to my bookshelf, and that's when I started writing to be published. But writing as me finding my passion was never a thing, you see. So it was just self-discovery, but I was already a writer per se. I hope you get what I mean.
Yeah, of course. So, like you said, everyone has their own skills, their own talent, and you found writing as yourself, your identity, basically. So,
Exactly.
what in terms of this in the book, Words for the Ocean, do you find that all these writers that have participated, they have given some piece of themselves in the book, or is it just content in line with the MV Wakashio?
Well, not all of the poems are about the incident. We did not want to restrict their art flow, ink flow. So we did not restrict it to the theme of the ocean or the oil spill. So although most of the poems are about that, I feel like, as you said, each writer gave a piece of themselves because even if we don't think of it, it takes quite a lot of bravery to send your work to complete strangers with the possibility of it being published to the public, especially if it's the first time. Like for me, it was the first time. It was nerve-wracking to think that all of these people will read my work. Like, yes, I post my work on Instagram, but to think that my work will be on a bookshelf somewhere, it's something else. And now to give your work to complete strangers and just let them do whatever they want with it, it takes a lot of bravery. So yes, I like the way you said that they gave a piece of themselves, because I feel like that's true.
Yeah, in the artistic field, be it an artist, be it a writer, be it a plumbing guy, I consider that as art as well. So being starting out is really not so easy to to be judged or comment on dit en créole complexé par le talent, par le truc qu'on fait. And yeah, I think it's quite an opportunity for everyone who wants to start out there, who started with Word for the Ocean. I think this could be a series of different books, different authors, different people around the world itself joining in that movement. So and as you said, there are many creative ideas that come when we are not getting out there, when we're not seen, but that stays with us, that stays in our diary, in a piece of paper somewhere. So is there some time where you get a writer's block, and what's your opinion on it? So how do you deal with it, and have you had I think everyone has it. Yeah, maybe Iman
The
can talk
David,
about this.
the bastard. I feel like one of obviously both me and Hasna, we know that we are inheritedly writers, but we are both working on developing our skills as writers, and that's a lifelong thing. But a writer's block is one of the devils that gets on the way, but defeating it is the goal, in my opinion at least. I believe that one needs to be patient with a writer's block. That one should not fear it. That's for one important thing. And secondly, that one should rather welcome it and embrace the emptiness that can be in one's mind. Um, and the remedy, in my opinion, was to try to defy the resistance that is between one and his paper and pen. So for instance, recently I had a writer's block, and I don't know why, and Hasna might agree with me on this, but each time Hasna posts like a poll on Instagram saying like inspire me or whatever, I would somehow magically be inspired, even though I would not otherwise be inspired. There's something so inspiring about people asking you to inspire them for some weird reason. But yeah, I lost my point there. But when I had the writer's block, I first of all I tried reading, because when I'm working on a book, the first thing I do is start to read, because you have to take from your seniors, let's say. And then I still couldn't come up with much. Then I was patient with it. I let it go for some days. Just for information, I submitted my poem in the Words for the Ocean 5 minutes before submitting it to our publishing house. Because I was having a writer's block. So
I didn't know
basically I was
that.
out there like criticizing everyone's work, but I didn't even have my work submitted. That's the experience I dealt with. And I think while going through all these poems and trying to open myself up to more ways of writing, we've had many experimental writers as well, which were really was quite an experience to read, and being exposed to this much of writing kind of affects you being inspired as well. But then I pushed myself to just sit and with my pen and paper. I was like, okay, you're gonna be patient with yourself. I don't expect you to write something super good or super great, but at least you put some lines down. And it's just through the process of some weeks, I wrote a line, I wrote 2 lines, I wrote a few I didn't like at all. Then I just wrote some gibberish and erased the gibberish, back and forth until 5 minutes before the deadline, I was able to somehow add more to it. And there you go, you got a poem. But I think the main key is patience and persistence. Persistence in defying the fear of not making art up to the standard. And history is a witness that, artists being afraid of not making art up to a certain level. And that's something I deal with, as I just told you. But yeah, that's what I think about it.
Me, I have a writer's block too. It's been here since the beginning of the year. But I just wanted to add to what Iman said and say, well, I'm a huge believer that everything happens for a reason, and that includes a writer's block as well. Because all of the times that I've got a writer's block before, when I come out of it, I have this explosion of inspiration where I just have to write. So I feel like, just like in anything in life, you need to take, prendre la distance to see the bigger picture and to really see what you've done so far, where you want to go. And I feel like a writer's block is a way to force you to do that, to press the
Reculer
pause
pour mieux
button.
sauter.
Voilà.
Ouais, ça va.
Donc, yeah, that's what I meant. Like a writer's block, it might be annoying. It is very frustrating, but I feel like it also happens for a reason.
That was good. And coming up to Iman's said that she wrote 5 minutes before the submission. So there's a key point here that says that under pressure, creative people perform well. And I'd like
That's
to
the
know
law. Is it like Parkinson's law or Pareto's law? Yeah, Parkinson's
something like
law.
that.
Did you hear about that concept? So it's basically just saying that, as you just said, that under pressure you're most likely to work more than if
Except
you
she
had
was
no
putting
deadline.
me under pressure.
So your
Yeah,
quality
she
of
was
work
very
will be better,
patient.
Hasna.
No, I was stressed out.
So on a psychology note, Hasna, can you help us on this,
Yeah, Dr. Hasna.
Dr. Hasna?
Oh no, please don't call me that.
Is there something nerves connecting that scientific about it If someone is under pressure, is there an adrenaline rush? Do they work better, or
Good
do they
question.
adapt? Do they adapt, or do they produce something that's creative? Do we consider that as creative,
It
or
really
do we?
depends on the personality of the person.
Okay.
You can have someone in a situation of huge pressure on their shoulders and they will work better. And then you have someone in the exact same situation who just sits down and cry. So it really depends on the person's personality and on their boss as well. But it depends on a lot of things. I'm not a professional yet. But yeah, what I learned, the main thing you learn in psychology is that every person's experience is unique to themselves. So you cannot really compare your experience to someone else's. The main thing that what my thoughts go to when you ask me about modern poetry is how different it is to the classic poetry that you learn in books. I feel like there's this huge gap from what it used to be years ago and from what poetry is now. And like in the past, for you to be called a poet, you actually had to study poetry. Like just like someone has to study to become a doctor or a lawyer, you had to study to become a poet. But now you just create an Instagram account, you create a nice design and you post it and bam, you're a poet. So it's a huge contrast from what it was and what it is now, which is good because it's more accessible. There are people who would not dare to put their works out there who do it now because it's so easy to do it. But it's also there's also the risk of regresser the meaning of what poetry really is. It used to be this magical thing where when you see a poet, you're like, wow, that's a genius. But now when you tell people, oh, I write poetry, it's no big deal because everyone does it. Everyone can do it, just like photography. Before it was this big thing, but now you have an iPhone, you take a picture, you just write a bunch of hashtags, and boom, you have a photography account.
I feel like one of the main things here is that obviously as writers we promote art and we are gratified by it's just purpose enriching to know that making art promotes art, even though making art essentially might as well be purposeless in essence, and I don't think that there's something wrong with that. But one of the main things that holds, since we're speaking about social media and poetry, is that, and I think that's what Hasna meant when she said regressed, is that there has been this, how do I say, this lack of distinction between writing as an art and writing as a form of expression. Um, Writing as an art is more, of course, all art is subjected to interpretation. I'm no one to define what art is and what art is not. But in respect to the great poets and writers that were before us, I believe that Instagram has somehow contributed to the loss of art in that sense. And people are out there calling themselves writers when all they do is combine pretty words with pretty rhymes and call it poetry. Not that not that I'm in a good place to have a say on that, but more importantly, my views, and I think Hasna would agree on me, on this would be as a reader more than a writer. So my views on literature or modern poetry in general would be from me as a reader, because obviously as a writer, I have a lot to work on myself. But essentially, that's just what I wanted to add to what Hasna said.
Yeah, that's really important because we as a reader, we don't really know what's good poetry, because when we read something, if it touches me, if it touches the other person, the writer's job is done. So he has,
Mm,
or he or she has impacted that person, that reader,
mm.
on that piece of art, that piece of writing. To you, young writers, what does success mean to you as a writer? What would you consider as you being successful in your fields? Yeah.
First of all, I don't think that the success for me is the goal. That's weird because then what is my goal? But I feel like the main goal in when it comes to writing and literature is to, you know, for people to be able to relate to what you're saying. Um, Not in the sense, oh, I've been through that. I know what she's talking about. We relate in the sense that I write something and they tell me that ça les a touchés. This for me makes me feel so happy because most of the time people tell me that about poetry where myself I have no idea why I wrote it, what drove me to write it. And this is what I was saying for the writer's block. Usually it happens when I have this huge writer's block and then at the end I just have a bunch of things to write and I don't even know where it comes from. I don't even know what feeling is driving me to write it. I just write it. And this reminds me of what Iman was saying. A writer, it's innate, it's in you. You don't become one. And I really feel that when I get this urge, sometimes I write something and people tell me, oh, why did you write that? What did you go through to write this? And I just tell them, I don't know. I did not go through anything. I just wrote it. So I don't think there's like this big successful thing like I'm going to be a successful writer when I publish my own book or when I do a public speaking about my book. I feel like it's the small little successes that make you grow as a writer.
That's really enriching to know. And yes, for me also, I'm just gonna share some experiences that as an artist, when you sell a painting or you sell something that you made, it's really that reaction from the client, from the person you're giving it to, is what envelopes the whole journey of the painting process, of the artistic journey of the work. And if you don't get that spark in that person's eye, and you feel kind of, yeah, I need to do better. So I don't know if it's the same for you guys. For me it's a visual feedback that I can get, and for you guys it's more of a like comments, or how did they feel. Maybe Iman, can you how was your experience with the Vinia project? Maybe you can address this.
Well, the writing the veneer was an experience in its own. It was a challenge in every imaginable way. I was doing my Form 5 exams, and I was crazily told that, I actually feel like writing a book, and it's gonna happen now, and I'm gonna have to do it in like 3 to 4 weeks, which it happened. A little bit more than 4 weeks, but it happened something during that time frame. So I would literally like be secluded for a few hours a day, and I usually write in English, but I challenged myself to write in French. I challenged myself to be able to study all the while writing a book. It was all about getting out of your comfort zone. And the success, if you like to call it that way, was just me being able to put the book out there and not, you know, be a bestseller or sell 1,000 copies or whatever. It did not come from that, nor did I expect it to be like, of course you hope that it's going to do well, but it's not what I expected for myself. Devenir, as per the word, was the process to become. It was the process that actually mattered and not the outcome. And the outcome is something that I'm still en devenir. So I can't speak for the as a matter of end factors. But since you guys are speaking about success, I feel like the general sense of success as a writer would be, to be published by the main publishing houses, the big boxes, or to be a bestseller, or to go international. But I feel like to even ask the question, can a writer, what is a successful writer in this train of thought, would be wrong, because I feel like this puts so much pressure on one that, one has to make a living, or one has to have let's say, quantified measure or thermometer of success when it comes to art, and that train of thought can be very disruptive to the art making. Simply, yes, I want to publish more works in the future, but my success, as how I would define success, wouldn't come as a matter of outcomes, but rather as for me as an individual. Did I get the content I wanted to out there? Did I pass the message I wanted to? Or did the people I wanted to write for get the message, as you guys are saying? So this is how I would define success. And I believe that Devenir was like a entity on its own. It had its own goals, its own values, and for the ocean's goals was had another nature. Its goal was to promote writing, to help our country. So each book come with its own purpose, its own vision, and so do each writing, debatedly. So yeah, that's what I wanted to say, kind of.
All right. So that does make a lot of sense in terms of when we start out and as an artist, we have to take it step by step and not really say that we have to reach one point. And yeah, and that also has a other side of the coin. We can say that people don't really respect art on how the artist how its process is, and they kind of take it easy and say that yeah, you just write, you just it's something that everyone can do, and it's not a career that you can depend on financially. So if you remove that aspect of finance in terms of success, like if you link that together, art definitely does come in play. So for, as I can relate with your guys' answers, that the success of a writer is basically to self improve oneself, um, to be better at it, and to be impactful in your writing, I guess.
Yourself. Well, obviously, you would want to write for yourself. You will want to stay true to yourself. But then, obviously, you'll have this little voice in your head telling you, yeah, well, what if they don't like it? Or, for example, if you look into my laptop right now, there are at least 5 documents of books that I started and never finished. And it's because of these thoughts, these insecurities of what if people don't like it? Or what if I'm not writing something that I want to write? What if I'm writing something that I want people to read? And I don't want to publish something out there or put anything out there really that doesn't come from me, that comes from the thought, oh, I'm doing this for my audience. But it's extremely difficult to draw the line. Sometimes I write something, and after some time when I read it again, it's very clear to me that that's not me. That's not something I would write. I wrote this for people. I wrote this for the people to like it. And I feel like very clear when you look at, again, modern poetry. There was this, I call it a wave of a particular style of poetry. You find it, I think the origin was Rupi Kaur. And as soon as she became successful and she published her book, I think the first one was Milk and Honey. It was extremely successful, went viral worldwide. And from there on, up until now, you can see so many young poets just being new Rupi Kaurs and adopting her style of writing, which is very true to her. I accept that, but it's very different from the classic poetry. And you can see how a lot of new poets just adapt to that because consciously or unconsciously they see that that's successful. That's what people like right now. So I'm going to do that. I feel like it's more unconscious. It's a subconscious thing. But yeah, it's I don't blame them because it's very difficult to not listen to that small voice in your head.
So thank you guys. This was Canvas Stories in conversation with Imaan and Hasna, the co-founders and authors for the Words for the Ocean anthology book. And you guys can find this in bookstores Le Printemps book court, and many other bookstores in Mauritius. So thank you for joining me on XTM Plus, and yeah, this was Canvas Stories. So this platform means we invite artists, we invite creative people, talented people to join in and promote their journey, promote their craft. So thank you.
You are on XTM Plus.
Don't forget to like, comment, and share.
Bye.
Bye.